Hi, we're going to bring on Danit. Welcome, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Okay. This is very exciting.
This is exciting. We had some amazing feedback this past week with Avi Fishoff.
It's actually, I was blown away. I was blown away by the response that we got. I just thought this was going to be something fun and light and hi, Sean, and enjoyable, and just not just the numbers, but both of us the whole week have been getting so much feedback from different people.
Yes.
And how, the effect that Avi's words had on
Yeah,
them.
absolutely. And I also didn't realize that so many people were going to share the video. I first learned how to look at insights on a Instagram reel, which I never had done before.
Right.
So, and I'm looking at it and I was sharing with you and I was like, wait, what does 2050, what does 2050 mean? And you're like, oh, Shaina, it was played to over 2,000 times.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
that was really, really, really surprising, but I'm not really surprised because Avi draws a crowd and
Right.
he's incredible. So I'm so happy to be back with you this week.
Likewise,
And
and I'm very, very excited about our guest tonight
I
because
know. So
he's
tell
amazing.
us, tell everybody why we're bringing in Simon Jacobson.
Rabbi Jacobson he's just very wise. He sees things so clearly and he says things so clear. Like he could take these really complicated concepts and just really bring them down to a very practical, understandable level. And he's right there. Let's bring him in.
Okay.
While Shaina gets him, I'll do a little plug-in for his book, Counting Out the Omer, which is coming right up. Highly recommend. Obviously, Toward a Meaningful Life is also amazing. And Guide to the High Holidays, but not very timely at the moment, but definitely get it for the high holidays. Really amazing.
Hello.
Hi.
Rabbi.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
I don't know if you
I see you've been speaking behind my back.
well, we waited for
We
you to
were.
come on. I don't know if you remember me, but I was a student of yours. I don't want to say the date because then I'm going to be literally giving away my age, but maybe a few years ago. But I remember loving your class, and it's one of the reasons why when Danit brought up, who could our guest speaker be this week, and we were brainstorming, and I said, oh, let's bring in Simon Jacobson, and she's like, I said, you remember he taught us in school, and she's like, I don't remember, and I'm like, no, you just weren't there, but I was there.
Well, you
But I'm
don't look a
sure you were
day.
amazing.
You don't look a day older. You're exactly the same as I remember you.
Well, thank you, thank you.
You too, Danit.
That makes
Well, I have to say, I mean, I'm sure your classes were amazing if I was there. A lot was happening. But I do want to share with whoever is listening that Rabbi Jacobson was my very first boss. It was my very first job right out of high school. I was a secretary in the Meaningful Life Center. I was a very, very not good secretary.
What?
But it just wasn't my strength. I have other strengths. Being a secretary was not one of them. But you were so nice to me, like so nice. You were such a good boss that you set the bar very high for bosses. And I just wanted to thank you for that. I have such nice memories. I don't remember how long I worked for, but it was very nice memories.
I remember you're extremely efficient and really excellent.
Oh,
Actually,
really? Oh,
you see,
okay.
we needed to wait so many years to reconnect.
We did. We did. I guess so. I mean, it's almost 30 years, almost in a couple of
who's
years.
Re-
So, okay. So
counting,
I'm very
Danit.
excited.
Why
Well,
are
thank
you
you.
doing
30,
that? Who's counting?
30 years. I can't
Yes,
believe it.
almost. So that was very healing. Thank you. So I'm not such a bad secretary. I don't think I would go back to doing it, but thank you. So let's get down to business.
Okay. First of all, thank you
Okay.
so much for joining us. I just want to say thank you to take time out of your busy schedule. It's Erev Pesach. We're just, we started this new Teen Talk. It kind of just took a life of its own. As you know, Danit and I are both coaches. We help parents with struggling teenagers, and we're trying to just open up dialogue of getting the conversation started around the challenges teenagers face today. And we have some questions that came in. Some of them were from anonymously, some of them were not, some of them are our own that we've faced with some of our clients. So obviously we're going to try to combine some of them and just do the overall so that we don't, we don't waste time. Is that okay?
Absolutely. It's my honor to be here. Thank you for having me. And
Okay,
let's
awesome.
go for it.
Okay.
So being the fact that me and Shaina are both parenting coaches, and really our, I guess, specialty, we deal with parents whose teenagers are really, really struggling, really struggling. We're talking severe situations happening. And we're both very busy, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because so many parents are calling us. So many parents are struggling with their kids. We're just wondering, this wasn't happening many years ago. This is like, what's up? Like, Shaina, you worded it really well.
The question I had was why do you think our generation is finding the challenge of raising teenagers harder than any other generation? What is it about our era that has taken such a drastic shift in the challenges that we're facing? What do you think the reason is? Like, and it could be more than one thing.
Yeah, but let me just ask you a question. Since you weren't parents in the previous generation, why are you so convinced that your parents didn't have an equally difficult job? Why do you think it's so drastically different? What are you basing that on?
So that's a great question because Danit and I were really good teenagers. So
We
we're
really
basing
were.
it on the way we were with our parents and how when our parents set down the rule, we just followed the rules. We did what we needed to do. And I do believe that there were challenges, but I also know that the type of challenges that the parents are facing today are more severe. We're talking, substance abuse to depression, suicide ideation, sometimes, God forbid, further than that, overdosing, other topics
Cutting themselves,
that are
harming.
self-harming. So I don't think that this is a new thing. I do believe that the other generations had it, but I don't believe it was as prominent as it is now.
Okay, I just was wondering what your where your assumption came from. So let me say this. Look, I'm a little older than you are, yes,
A little bit.
but not completely of a different generation entirely. In my generation, when we were teenagers, we had the. I just want to make some comparisons here, and then we'll address directly the question. We had in my class, for example, we had some real troublemakers, people who were had experienced dysfunctional homes and so on. And then we had really the goodies, the goody goodies, and then there were the in betweens. What I did notice in my own generation was in yeshiva, even pot, marijuana, had not yet entered into the system. It was still more or less a secular thing out there. It started changing in the late 70s. So just want to point out a few things. So I just want to distinguish. I think teenagers have always been the same. Teenagers are going through a transition from childhood into adult life. And we all know transitions are always complex. Because, when you're a 5-year-old, pretty much your parents are taking care of things. I'm not saying a 5-year-old can't experience trauma, but it's not quite the same. Once you hit adolescence, puberty, your sexuality begins to develop. You start becoming your own person, separate from your class, from your family. That's when we all go through some form of disorientation. Let's be honest, because we're adjusting to a new reality. So this is universal through all generations. Let's just make that clear, because I don't think we should just look at it. Oh, today we've got teenagers have always been a challenge because they're literally they're metamorphosizing from childhood into adulthood. and there's a lot of unknowns. You know, you have to start making decisions. You're suddenly 16, 17, and you start thinking about things differently. You're not just part of a group. I mean, I can go through the analysis, but I just want to quickly just make sure we understand that there are many things in common with all generations. What I think has perhaps accelerated in our time are a few things. First of all, technology is magnified and speeds up everything. You know, so if you have a problem, you can immediately broadcast it and everyone else hears about
Right.
it. In 1970, 1980, even 1990, there was no internet. So you had an issue, maybe you shared it with your friends, with your classmates, but that was it. There was no such thing as mass misery or mass trauma. Now you just go on, right? And and there's something to be said. People, especially impressionable teenagers, start hearing, "Oh, you got that problem. I also have that problem," and suddenly problems become so-called unmanageable because they become so prominent. And then there's, of course, the sensationalism of it. And then there's the commercialization, people trying to take advantage. You know, let's be honest, social media, for all its qualities, is also exploiting us. It's exploiting our need to connect. You know, we're using it for a good purpose right now. But we all know that it can be used for purposes that are nothing to do with content and meaning. They just are taking advantage of us. They want to have our eyeballs and they want to be able to make money on us. So all of that. One more thing, I think, in the psychological realm, I think what has changed, there's a lot more openness today. You know, in my time, and probably your time as well, if there was a problem at home, people didn't really speak about it.
No.
People suffered in silence. Today, like, you know, I don't want to call it emotional diarrhea that some people call it, but basically today, excuse my graphic
This is
example.
a safe space. We can
Yeah.
just say whatever we want.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have said this when I was your teacher in high school, but
No,
here
you
we come.
didn't. You definitely
Okay.
didn't.
Right. So there's also that element of, you know, like everybody's just talking, open mic. I'm not against, by the way, breaking silence. I think it's very healthy. But there was an element of a lot more discreet, and you suffered in silence, which has many downsides, by the way. Many downsides. Many of our parents never expressed their emotions, which frankly has only led to more problems. But teenagers were not really allowed to just voice things. So you just were basically, you conformed. And today, I think there's almost a license that's been given that everybody just says what's on their mind, which on one hand is something healthy about that. On the other hand, it leads to chutzpah. It leads to being obnoxious. It leads to my way, you know. And finally, I think one more thing that needs to be pointed out is we're successful, we're prosperous, we're comfortable. And comfort always leads to a certain element of sense of entitlement and a sense of apathy, even. You know, when my parents came to the United States, they were immigrants. They didn't know the language. They had no money. Their struggle was to survive, and their values were very crystallized. But once you get comfortable, there's a concept of, you know, I'm comfortable. There's no sense of urgency. You stop appreciating values. I assure you, ask a teenager today, tell me your top 3 values. They're going to be very different than what a teenager would have said 30 years ago. It probably will not include family love. It'll probably include entertainment, my friends, maybe sexuality in those in that world. It's far more materialistic because we are not struggling to survive. I'm talking about, you know, real existential survival. And sadly, the blessing of prosperity and comfort often brings a certain numbness to what really matters. I see this because I counsel a lot of people who are dating, and their priorities, I want a guy with a lot of money. I want to be comfortable. I want a lot of vacations. And I say, does it matter that he's kind? Does it matter that he's trustworthy? Or for that matter, a woman, do you mind? And it doesn't always come to the top of the list. It's more important that I be comfortable than have someone I trust. I mean, we all understand what that means. So there's a certain shallowness and superficiality to all of it. And finally, I'll say the media helps dumb us down. Let's be honest. You know, the TikToks and so on, with all its advantage, and I use technology for good purposes, hopefully, but it also creates a very low common denominator of titillation and sensationalism and the voyeurism. And, you know, what more things are more outrageous, get more hits, you know. I think that's part of the combination. And all of that, unfortunately, who is going to be most victim to all of it? impressionable teenagers who don't yet have the grounding and the maturity to deal with all this emotional, I would say, this emotional overload.
Right. That makes a lot of
So now what?
sense.
What do we do now,
So now what?
Rabbi?
As parents today, um, some of the clients that I'm, or some of the cases that I'm facing, some of them are minor, some of them are pretty major. So what now? How do we navigate this? Because I do think there has to be some type of balance to everything you're saying. And how do parents implement the balance of being able to voice what we're feeling and saying, but also to not be disrespectful while we're doing it?
Right. So I think let's begin with parents before we get to coaches and therapists and professionals. Parents can do tremendous because let's be honest, everything begins at home. Every child's early impressions will begin from their parents, from not only from birth, but also in pregnancy. At the end of the day, every child on earth was once in their mother's womb. And its first experiences, emotional experiences in life, are all about the parents. So long before we're even conscious and aware, the way children are nurtured or not nurtured is going to impact them for life. So I would say, due to these new challenges of our times, where everything is accelerated and everything is amplified and everything is out there, I think the maybe this sounds like a cliche, the idea of expressing love to your child, unconditional love, expressing to your child that you are extremely valuable, you're indispensable, that you matter, that you matter. You matter to me, to God, to the human race, is more important than ever because as they grow older, they're actually being told that they don't matter that much. They're a statistic. They don't. So who's going to give them that sense of fundamental value? So today, if you criticize your child or you invalidate them, I think the effect is far worse than it was once when we lived in more insulated environment. So it's critical that parents really are conscientious and very deliberately express literally on a daily basis, you're my child. I'm always there for you. Never, always know that. And even when you're a little critical, make sure they understand that it's coming from a loving place. Don't assume. Even if you're extremely busy and you have two careers, meaning father and mother, make time for your children. This is the most precious commodity. Remember, an ignored child, it's not a small matter. For a child being ignored, the child feels abandoned. And it undermines their security, it undermines their confidence. And all these things become magnified when they get older. So I would say we have to work overtime more than ever before to express that importance. Technology is just a tool. The key thing that children need to know is that you have a soul, you have a neshama, I love you. God sent you to this world. I'll just share with you, I think just a practical, a few years ago, a woman wrote to me right before Rosh Hashanah. She said, the new year is coming. And I listened to a lot of your programs. I see you talk a lot about parents and children. What would you suggest a new thing I can do to help my children? And I thought about it. And then I wrote up a short exercise, which I can't tell you how many comments I received from parents. And they did it, and it said it changed literally their homes. I said, very simple. Every morning and every evening, before your children go to sleep, and as when they wake up, don't just say, I love you, pack up their lunch and send them off to school. Add one more thing. When you say Moda'ani with them, tell them, God sent you, you're my most precious gift, to fulfill a very unique mission in this world that you and only you can fulfill. I am here to help you live up to your great potential, your neshama. You have to always know your soul is the most precious thing. It's God saying you matter. Birth is God saying you matter and that you're most valuable. That's all. Say it in the morning and the evening in a very sincere way. The children will begin to hear it, and you'll see conversations. What's a neshama? What's purpose? What's meaning? The best defense is offense. You can't just shut off technology. You can't close down the world. You can't slow it down. But you can arm your children with more resources and an arsenal of inner confidence that comes from your neshama. So really, it comes down to nourish and nurture the souls of your children. The more you do so in the younger age, the rewards and the fruits of your labor will be unbelievable as they grow older. No guarantee. There's no guarantees. Life is full of challenges, but you want to arm your children with as much of that validation and value that they should know that they're not defined by their friends, they're not defined by technology, they're not defined by advertising, they're defined by God's soul and within them and their purpose in life. I have more to say on this. I don't want to keep
Keep
Please,
this here.
going. Keep going.
yeah, this
We have
is
more and more people joining as we're
Okay,
speaking.
so then I'll
So
say this:
keep
as
going.
your children grow older, identify their strengths. If a child is musical, make sure they actualize that.
Danit is
Don't
so
silence
good
them.
with that. Danit is she's so good
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. If they like to read, suggest books, give them to read. Don't ever suppress their talents. Even if you think they can get into trouble, they listen to the wrong music, they read the wrong book. So fine, so direct and guide them. But never, remember, when you stop someone from fulfilling actualizing their talent, it can come back to bite big time, because it's like telling somebody not to use their right arm or their left arm. What do you mean? That's who I am. So identifying your children, their skills, their talents. Some children will be good students. Some are just not. They don't have the attention span. Obviously, I'm not suggesting letting everyone do whatever they want, but really adjusting yourself, like we say, chanoch lenar al pi darke. Educate your child according to their way. Why doesn't it say according to the Torah way, according to God's way? Because God is saying, take my way and accommodate and customize it and tailor it to your children. And children are different. That besides the fact that you help them actualize, you respect them for who they are. So as they grow older, they don't feel, oh, I did this because I really wanted to do something else, but my parents were not approving. So cultivate their strengths. And again, whenever I see teenagers in trouble, and I deal a lot with teens at risk. They got in trouble with drugs, with alcohol, with all kinds of stuff that is not healthy. So yes, you have to do everything possible to get them out of there. But the best defense is offense. You find something they like. Remember, find a healthy passion weakens the passion for the unhealthy. Remember, every addiction is a form of attachment. It's just what's called attachment disorder. They're attached to the wrong thing. So they think they can get relief and feel a little instant gratification from something that's not healthy. Like a thirsty person is going to drink whatever that you give them, even if it's toxic. The solution is not to tell them don't drink, give them a healthy drink. Find a passion that they have. As I said, again, a talent, a skill, and incentivize them in that area. Because at the end of the day, the best way to wean somebody off, to wean somebody off an unhealthy passion is to give them a healthy passion. You need alternatives. You have to rechannel, not repress. Rechannel, redirect. I mean, again, it can go on and on, but I'll say some more things as we go. I just, let me catch my breath. Let me catch my breath.
Practical. It's so practical, this advice that you're giving. You're not giving these esoteric, deep concepts that we have to internalize and think about. It's like, if your kid is musical, get the music lesson. Have instruments in your house. If they're artistic, have art supplies in the house. Get them art lessons. These are such easy, simple, practical tips that anyone can do. Any single parent can do this. Any age child.
Right. But it also means that you need to know your child. You need to get to know your child. Talk to your child to see maybe they want to be doing gymnastics on Sundays, or maybe it's dancing or whatever it is. But getting to know your child, I think, is also so important. It's not just knowing what skill they have, but knowing what they want to be working on as well.
And unfortunately, listen, let's be honest. Parents are very overwhelmed by work and by other responsibilities. And sometimes they just don't have the energy to pay attention to their children. And you have to realize what your priorities are. I've heard parents tell me, I'm so busy building a secure nest egg for my children, I don't have time for them. I said, do you hear the paradox in your words? You're trying to give them security by making them insecure,
Right. But it goes back to the same thing you said earlier of what's the priority?
Yeah.
What
and
is the priority?
I'll say, and just to bring, since we are also we come from the Jewish tradition, Judaism is often for many children becomes a burden. Shabbos, oh boy, Shabbos. I can't do this. I can't text. I can't do that. I can't
Let's
do
go
this.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to just add something in that. Make Shabbos, Yom Tov, Pesach exciting. Don't do it by rote. Children, the worst thing they need is to come to a Shabbos table, and it's every week the same thing. Father falls asleep the same place. They sing the same songs, same food. I don't mean the exact same food. I mean the same recipes. It becomes, and children cannot stand boredom and monotony. You have to make a Shabbos into if you want, turn it into a creative project.
Yep.
Turn it into something that let them tell a story, sing a song, paint something. The Seder is coming. I can tell you so many children, yes, we know we excite them with the firkashas, asking the questions, but do whatever you can to get them to initiate. Not just follow the rules. Let them do things that they really feel, well, you know what? It should be memorable. The last thing you want is children growing into adults that say, Shabbos was the most boring day in my life. Shabbos was a day we did nothing. And Yiddishkeit is filled with rich tradition. You just have to pay attention. Unfortunately, there's a concept of mechanical Judaism. Where you just go by rote, go through the motions. Okay, time to light candles. Everybody, where are you? Let's light Shabbos candles. And it becomes this mechanical thing. And I find that ultimately wears everybody down. And you can't imagine, and it has to be filled with vitality. At the end of the day, children see parents that are excited about something, it excites them. And that just did another thing that I would just throw into the whole equation here.
No, I totally
We were
relate
just
to everything
talking
you're
about
saying.
that,
We were just
Shaina.
talking about benching licht and how the homes that we grew up in was always so stressful around the candle lighting time, around the time frame and getting it on time and not even knowing, like unknowingly passing that stress onto our children because that was what we had of like the stress around benching lift on time. Why does it have to be a stress? Why?
Exactly. It should be the most beautiful moment where you tell your daughter, listen, we're going to stand now with Hashem. You cover your eyes. You could ask for anything you want and need. The most serene moment in the whole week. And it's you and God. The holiest, you are ushering the Holy Shabbos into this world. It's really about not so complex. It's about paying attention and being conscientious and deliberate. Not just relying, mechanical, robotic, and so on. That's a big part of it. We adults have become very robotic in many ways. We go through the motions by rote, and children, it's I don't want to call it a cancer, but for children, it's anathema. Things that are mechanical and robotic like that.
Yeah.
Right. Right. No, I almost feel like it's like we are a generation of parents that we really need to step it up. Like we can no longer, like maybe when we were kids, that mechanical Judaism just kind of worked somewhat, but nowadays it doesn't. Our kids won't accept it. It just doesn't work anymore. So we really have to do the work to make it to fall in love with it again. We need to, right?
It never worked well. The only thing then, there were no alternatives, so you're
Right.
stuck. You're stuck living in a shtetl. But
Right.
today, there's plenty of entertainment alternatives. You just change the channel and you move elsewhere. I can tell you, I remember a mother calling me distraught that her son, 17-year-old boy, doesn't want to come to the Shabbos table. He stays in his room, and that's that. She says, I don't know what he's doing. He's probably on the computer. Who knows? I don't know what he's doing. And what can I do? And I said to her, well, what does your table look like? And of course, a mechanical table. I said, why would a 17-year-old looking for action be interested in sitting around at your table when it's so boring? So I said, what do you
Lighten it up.
suggest? What do you suggest? I said, what does your husband do? He works in Manhattan in a computer place. I said, does he have coworkers? Yeah. Are there any atheists among them? Yes. Why don't you invite a few atheists to the table and have an argument about God? I assure you, once your son sees some action going on and some controversy and something provocative, it'll make a
Oh,
major difference. Is then you have to think creatively. See, because we take for granted, oh, Shabbos is so beautiful. Why does my son appreciate Shabbos? When in truth, what's going on is you need to make things come alive. And this is not a new concept. You know, there's a reason it says in the Torah the word hayom. Why does it say v'yadaita hayom? Atem nitzavim hayom, today. When is today? So Rashi says today is telling us that the Torah should always be like new, like today, not like something from yesterday, not old hat. You know, that should always be new vitality. Every time you say Shema, every time you keep Shabbat, every time you do a Seder, it should be like you never did it before. That's how exciting it should be. Look at people going to a rock concert. What do you think? They're not getting anything by rote. They go there because they see it may be the same song, but it's played a new way. It's exciting. You have to learn from these things, and I can't emphasize it enough.
Wow, big responsibility, everybody.
Yeah,
I also like to feel like I feel like as a family to lighten things up a little bit. Not everything has to be so serious all the time. Have fun with it. Or just, play a game at the Shabbos table. Why can't we play a game? Why not? Play a
absolutely,
game. If that's going to keep
absolutely.
your child at the Shabbos table, play a game. It doesn't have to be anything too drastic, but just something light. Lighten up the mood.
Lighten it up and make sure that they have only pleasant memories and not like go away. Oh, it was just something we just did and so on. Yes, they should always be pleasant, uplifting, empowering. I mean, so these are some of the things. Obviously, I should add, we understand that even if you do everything right, there's still challenges out there. So I would just add another thing. I think parents have to have an extra additional ear, sensitive ear. Listen to your children. I don't just mean listen to what they say. Listen to what they don't say. In other words, if you see a mood change in your child, I'm not saying become paranoia and jump on everything, but be very, very sensitive because things happen. Something happens in school. It could be bullying. It could be something else. It could be worse, some form of abuse. And children do not talk. They will not talk to parents. As much as you tell them, talk to me, you could always talk to me. I won't judge you. I won't criticize you. Children have this block. I mean, I think back, would I have told my parents if something happened? No, I wouldn't. It's the last people I would tell my parents. So I think it's important to watch out. And when you do, this doesn't mean come on strong if you think something happened, or you have to find the right sensitive way to be able to them to trust you. I'm not trying to just address now, the horror stories of abuse and hurt and violation and so on. But I'm just talking in general. Children are sensitive and teenagers as well. And it's important to keep your eyes and ears open and maintain relationships. A lot of parents feel that their teenagers grow out of them. We can't talk anymore. Why not? You were a teenager once. Why do you have to talk like a parent to a child? Why don't you talk like a friend? I'm not saying obviously you're always a parent, but why not just talk to them like about your life and your challenges? Why does it have to be purely they see you as the authority and that's that? Why shouldn't they see you as a human being, especially as your children grow older? And I know a lot of parents say, I don't know what to talk to my children about anymore, because the answer is just be natural. And it doesn't have to only be about the rules of the home or just about things, sometimes like you said, fun, share a joke, share something you read. My mother, when I was a teenager, I was a voracious reader. I loved to read. And I read everything. Trust me, something's appropriate, something's not so appropriate. Philosophical stuff outside of the Jewish faith. I don't want to go through all the details, but
won't tell anyone between us and everyone else.
Absolutely. But I love to read, and that's who I was. I just like reading. I remember once, a whole Shabbos, I ended up just lying in bed reading The Count of Monte Cristo from Alexander Dumas. And my mother said, go to shul, go to shul, go to shul. Yeah, whatever. I kept on pushing it off. By the time she realized Shabbos was over. And I finished the whole book. It's a very exciting book. And
my son's
mother
reading it, by the way. My
That's cute.
son's in the middle of reading it.
That's
wow.
cute.
Okay.
He came on. Yeah,
that's cute.
Yeah.
It's about vengeance. It's about vengeance, and it's a very my mother did something very wise. After that she began to suggest books for me to read.
Wow.
I remember the two books she suggested. I can tell you till today. We're talking now over 50 years ago.
Let's hear.
She one book was called The Way of All Flesh. And I remember my mother telling me, after you read this book, you're going to hate your parents. So I said, how do you know? She says, because I started hating my parents when I read the book. Because it's a book about overbearing religious parents. It's not a Jewish
Oh,
book.
wow.
It's about
Oh, wow.
overbearing Christian religious parents. That the mother was so fanatical, so extreme, she literally destroyed her children's lives
Oh, wow.
until her son finally grew up, and then he obviously rejected everything. Very good book about how parents can hurt their children. So imagine my mother is giving me a book to tell me about how parents can hurt their children. Now I realize how manipulative that was. You know, she was like, anyway, that was one book. The second book was called Vanity Fair, not the magazine.
Okay.
It's a classic book by William Makepeace Thackeray. Excellent book, by the way. A book. It's like social philosophy, but through like a loose narrative of a story. It was very. And I know at that time I remember Les Miserables I read and a few others. My point is that if you see your child doing something like that, like I mentioned before, it's not obviously you want to make sure they don't end up reading things that are really destructive or really bad. But if you see a book, may not be kedusha, let's put it this way, it's not Tanya, and it's not Torah. However, it has themes. You know, some of these classics have powerful themes. The theme of vengeance, the theme of like Les Miserables, the theme of misery and poverty and destiny. You know, books like that. And there's nothing wrong with turning the book into a discussion about a human interest topic, because that shows also it's not about ingratiating yourself to your children, but they see you're normal. You're not just this crazy like authoritative person.
Right.
Now, if there's something really problematic that they're watching, you know, on their phones or so on, so that's another discussion which we can talk about. But I was talking about things a little more neutral, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, because each case is different, and I feel like each parent has to know their child. And if there's something that they're concerned about, that's where they have professionals involved or parenting coaches, which I think nowadays is something that's way more socially acceptable. And people don't have to people don't have to make those decisions alone. They can get advice from other people who've been there and done that, and see what works best for their child.
Absolutely, and you want to again harness and channel your child's energy into positive places. That's the key.
Yeah.
Um, also, let's be honest. Teen years are like I look at it sometimes like a minefield, because it's that transition stage. They're not yet fully adults, and you really have to get through it. Like get through it, and hopefully they can have a good landing. you know, so it's like a holding pattern at times, but you want to
And
make sure.
it's a lot of work on us as parents to keep ourselves regulated, to not overreact to things that our kids do, because so much of our reaction to what they do has such a huge
And,
effect on their development.
and I can't overstate the case for getting your children to initiate things. If a child writes an essay or can create a piece of art or music, and it's their creation, you can't imagine the pride and the confidence that builds. You know, that's why I'm a big believer in contests and incentivized, competitions, not, in a way where you really get the best talent. Like I know in camp, when we were in camp, we had color war. So, my first thing I ever wrote, today I'm a writer, I wrote was a color war song, a theme
Oh,
song.
wow.
And I didn't even know if I could write. The guy that was supposed to write the song, and we were in Detroit in camp, Gan Yisrael. The guy who was supposed to write the song suddenly ended up in the infirmary with high fever. The captain of the team comes to me. He says, "Isn't your father a writer?" My father was a journalist. I said, "Yeah." He says, "So you're going to write the song?" I said, "Just because my father's a writer doesn't mean I can write songs." He says, "Yeah, you're going to write it, and I need it in 2 hours." So I was forced. I sat down under a tree. I was humming a song to myself, and I wrote up some lyrics. I still remember it. I'm a little embarrassed today, based on the childish. But our team was called Bein Adam L'Mokim. There
Do
were
you want
two
to do
teams,
you want
Bein Adam
do you want
L'Chaveri,
to say it instead of sing? Do you want to say it to us? You don't have to sing it.
if you want, I can sing as well.
Please do.
Could you sing it? We'd
Please do.
love to hear it.
I know. Let's go. You want to hear it?
This is embarrassing. You're putting me on this. I feel stage fright. I never have an issue with this.
There's nobody watching. Don't worry.
Well,
I
clap
know. I know.
along.
I know.
Only if you want. It sounds very
Anyway,
intriguing. The very
wait.
first thing you ever wrote.
Okay. I don't even remember all the lyrics. I'll just sing whatever I remember.
Okay,
Okay.
go.
But it was about Benodim Lemokim, so I wrote a song about prayer. You know, a person sitting in the middle of a forest and just speaking to God. So it went like this. Midst forests of green, beauty serene, echoes of silence reverberating in the scene. 'Twas tranquil and clear, birds perched in fear. Silence, I think how strange was the silence appeared. And then I go on and speak about, I don't remember the next section, but I remember that there was a fellow sitting on a stone, and then goes, someone sitting on a stone, and then I search, I yearn, and I hope. That became like that. I mean, I don't remember it all.
How old
It
were
should have
you?
gone.
Anyway,
It should have gone viral. If there was Instagram, you would have been viral.
Wait, how
I
old were
see
you?
all the hearts are popping up. I guess they want me to continue
They
singing.
want to hear you sing.
Yes.
How old
I love
were
singing,
you?
by the way. I love singing. I once recreated the lyric. The point I want to make, let me get back to my point.
Okay,
That
Okay.
go.
was
I
poetry.
understand.
That was very
Yeah,
poetic.
yeah, that was.
That was beautiful.
Okay. And then I
Yeah.
wrote Toward a Meaningful Life years later. Okay.
We now know where it all started from.
But
Summer
it was
camp.
started from camp, little kids. I mean, whatever. How old was I? 15, 16. I don't remember. And the need to do it. And I see, and you know, I look back, I ended up creating something. I don't know what, it doesn't matter how good it was. The point is, don't underestimate getting your children to initiate something. Tremendous. It's the greatest confidence builder. And I
And
mean, that's why
acknowledging
in
it,
school you have projects, you have,
recognizing.
yeah.
Wow.
Wow. I love how you remember that. That's amazing.
Quite amazing. Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, if you remember the rest of it, you could always come back on another time and perform it.
Maybe I'll
Danit,
take it. Maybe I'll take it to the road. Maybe
maybe,
I'll create
Maybe.
it. Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
What, Danit,
Yeah.
I feel like there was some other questions that came in. Do you want to
Yes.
address? Okay, you want to
Yeah.
address them because I feel like they were so good.
Yeah. There was one over here. Where do we draw the line between what to keep private and spreading awareness when it comes to the mental health of our children?
Right.
That was a question that came in.
Okay. So look, privacy is always number one. You can never, God forbid, as a parent, for sure not, just in any way breach a confidence that may embarrass your child and hurt them. Even if you feel that your child is keeping something in and it'd be healthy for them to speak, but it's not your job to force it. So what you have to do is encourage them to find someone to speak to that they can trust. So I think it's a boundary issue as well. You know, your child confided in you, or you know something about your child as a parent. You don't have a right to go talk to anyone about it.
What if
Um,
they gave you permission?
One second. Well, let me just, okay, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Now, the question is a bigger question. Let's say they gave you permission and they don't mind. I also don't think everything has to be advertised. I think it's case by case. For some people, it's actually healthy for them to express. Remember the mic drop, people get up and they share their story. If it's healing and it's coming, they've talked to their therapist or they talk to their confidant who someone they trust who says it's good for you. But remember, it can get sensationalistic. People like to hear a secret. You know, it gets a little, it could also be a little inappropriate even. So, and I'm not talking about sneers necessarily. I just mean it's not always it's not always the right thing to do just to let everything hang out. There's also a modest way to share. Let's say a person wants to talk about molestation that they experienced. Okay, if I were to coach them, I would say you don't have to be explicit and say everything. You know, people have an imagination. You can leave some things to the imagination. You want to share that you were extremely deep shame and the big secret. talk about that. But always, my litmus test is always, how will it benefit you and others? It's not just you talk to talk. We don't just get
Yeah.
up to talk. How will it benefit? If it's, let's say, you want to help other people who maybe have been silenced and are afraid, so you're helping build their courage, very commendable. If, for example, you need it because you need to build courage that you can speak about something that was unspeakable, but you want to be very careful because you don't want it to be misunderstood or misused or abused. And so therefore, I think it's a case by case thing. I don't know if there's a one size fits all, rule. I think the key question is to ask, what is the benefit, and do it only as much as necessary based on that benefit. It's not an objective of its own to just talk about everything. Today you have talk shows, they talk about everything, but I look at it more like it's more commercial, it's more entertaining. They talk about everything, becomes a show that everybody wants to listen because it's a tell-all.
Right.
That's not what we're looking to do here. We're looking to heal. We're looking to find, and remember, sometimes it doesn't have to be public. You want to help other people, why don't you just say, I went through a very, very traumatic experience, and I'm not going to share so much, but if anybody wants to talk to me privately, please call me. That could be equally helpful. You don't always have to say it in front of 1,000 people. Maybe it should be discreet. And often when I speak in public and sensitive topics like this come up, someone asks a question, I'll answer briefly, and then I'll say, I think we should talk about this afterwards, one-on-one, or if a few people want to get together. It has to be done with respect and with proper discretion. Remember, tznius is not about hiding things. Tznius is about dignity. You have to always maintain your dignity, even when you're talking about things that are very sensitive or intimate.
Right. Oh, love
I like that
yeah.
word dignity. I like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, if all of us were taught that tznius is dignity instead of covering your elbows and your knees and this and that and not being provocative, dignity is a whole other story. You're a queen, you're a princess. And for that matter, it's also for men, and dignity is also how you take a shower and how you get dressed, even if no one's around. It's not just about provoking others. It's about treating yourself with dignity. That you're a queen. You're God's child. You're created in the divine image. You're sacred.
And that really ties into what you said in the beginning about parents speaking to their kids after Maidani and
Exactly.
instilling in them, right?
Yeah. You talk about the tznius thing. I'll say many teachers, educators, and parents have demoralized their children. They make them feel like schmatas, like you're worthless. Look how you're dressing like a slut, etc.
Oh,
What are you doing with that? Even if they are dressing inappropriately, you're basically demoralizing them.
Yeah.
You're making them feel even worse. What do you think? You always want to lift people up. In Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says something very powerful. He says anything that demoralizes a person is not coming from Kedusha. It's coming from the Yetzer Hara.
Wow.
Anything that demoralizes you and doesn't motivate you. He's talking about the difference between depression and sadness. If, on the other hand, it motivates you, you feel, let's say, remorse or regret or sad, but it motivates you. It doesn't paralyze you. It doesn't put you into a depression where you freeze up and you lock yourself in your room under your blanket. But it motivates you. That's another story. So so anything that demoralizes a child or demoralizes an adult, for that matter, is never coming from a holy place, because it's not. What is the purpose? Your child comes home from school. Let's say they did something really bad. They hit another child. Something inappropriate. So you have parents who, my child can never do wrong. It's always someone else's fault. The principal, the teacher, the this one, that one, the other children, the other parents. Okay. Then their parents the other way around. They're disciplinarians. As soon as they hear something, they ground their child. You can't come out of your room. You can't use technology, whatever. No gift, all that stuff. Both of them are not appropriate responses. They're both, frankly, quick fixes. Either you just dismiss the whole thing, or you try to or you use too much. It's either too much chesed or too much gvura. The right Hasidic approach is, and I'm talking about something serious that you've confirmed that they did, not hearsay. You confirmed, and you know your child needs to know that's not appropriate. So you sit them down in a very kind and loving way, not with a tantrum and not with anger, very deliberate. If you're still angry, wait till the next morning or something and say, let's talk about what happened. And make the point, it's not the right way to behave. And and because I love you so much, I really feel it's like you're me. I feel like disappointed in myself. And let's talk about what we can do. We can't ignore it because it deserves. Maybe you have to tell that person, "I'm sorry," and you let your child speak. If they have, let them give their excuses if necessary. The bottom line: don't demoralize them. Motivate them and say, "This is something that needs correction." And I'm thinking, how do we do that? And maybe you say, because of that, I feel that to demonstrate the seriousness of this, we're going to do something that you may not like so much, but all in a loving way that doesn't demoralize. You want the child to go away remembering, not that they're just a bad person and did a bad thing, remembering the positive that came out of it. That because of that, why don't you be extra kind tomorrow in school to a few kids that need a little more compassion or things like that. But this takes more work and more deliberate attention.
Intentional parenting.
Will
Yeah,
this
deliberate.
demoralize them or will this motivate them? That's the question all of us should think before we say anything to our kids. Every educator, every parent.
Absolutely,
Danit,
uplifting.
were
Thank
there
you.
any more questions? Because I think what we learned last week was that the live will shut down due to like allowances for how long we can go on, and so it just kind of like shut down, and we didn't have like any closing statements. So I just want to make sure that we get all our questions in because I think we only have 5 minutes left.
Yeah, the truth is there were a lot of questions, but everything we spoke about answered the questions. It really was like an all-encompassing conversation that really addressed everything. Literally, I'm just looking.
As
I don't think.
as you can imagine, I mean, I've heard these questions before, so yeah.
Right.
But yeah, look, how long are you doing this program, by the way?
You're our
Which pro? Wait,
second guest.
the teen talk? Oh, this is you're our second guest.
Second
Yeah,
guest. Oh,
Yes.
we just started.
very nice, very
This
Yeah.
is a
nice.
new project. We've been doing coaching for it's been. I mean, it's not a new thing, but we're coming out with it now, and we've thought this would be a good platform to, number one, raise awareness, open up dialogue, and also bring in experts that know more than we do.
So you do this together? The plan is to do this together on a weekly basis? Oh,
We hope so.
That's the
cool.
plan.
Very good.
We have a very exciting lineup
So,
coming. We have one more guest next week before Pesach. We take a break for Pesach, and then we come back. We have some, we're working on a couple of exciting guests, and if you want to come back, we would love to have
We
you
would
come back.
love to have you back. It's be coaching. We can only reach so many people, and there's a dire need for support and information and guidance and the right guidance because there's a lot of wrong guidance out there. So we really want to bring people on that we respect as
yeah, sure.
humans,
Listen,
as everything.
I think this is vital, and I commend you for doing this. That's great, great, great.
Thank you.
And everyone talks about technology. This is what technology was created for, to use it as a platform. So you talk about uplifting and helping people, not just for entertainment or for nonsense or for wasting time.
Right.
So great. That's beautiful what you're doing. Make
Yes.
sure your children are aware of what you're doing.
Oh, of course. My
Some
son
of
was
my
on
kids
earlier.
are on the live right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they're very proud.
Yeah.
And they should be helped to, yeah, they're two beautiful mothers that are becoming superstars.
Well, I don't know
The
about that.
goal is not to be a superstar. The goal is really to just get all this information out there to all. There's, we all need it. We all need each other. We're all in this together.
I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from whether I'm in Shul or whatever it was, and people saying thank you so much for like putting in the effort to bring in guests that are, it's a very specific thing. It's not just like, oh, Simon Jacobson is coming on Talking Tanya. People can go onto your podcast that I listen to I follow you on Instagram. So this is something very specific. And we thought that, because you're so respected as a rabbi and as a philosopher, what better topic would people want to hear from you about is parenting, especially teenagers today, and especially with the challenges we're facing, that we thought that, you being the second guest, we're setting the standards very, very high for our
I
other
know. I
guests.
don't know what we were thinking. It's like really, we're starting like right at the top.
It's beautiful. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I love your questions, your energy. It's all really great, and
Thank you so
should be
much. It's
tremendous
so good to
success.
see you again. It's been so long. I really, really, really am grateful that you agreed to come on. And I'm going to tell Danit about the classes that she missed in high school, because
I don't
I
know where
mean
I
it.
still
I was.
have my
I mean it.
notes.
You look to me like two teenagers, something like 18, 19 years old. That's it.
We have 18, 19-year-old
I
kids
have
now.
a
So
23-year-old, but okay.
Okay, so and
well,
my eyesight is very good. So
Baruch Hashem.
well,
Baruch
Rabbi
Hashem.
Jacobson, thank you so much for coming on. I learned so much, so much. This was so inspiring, so uplifting, so inspirational. I'm sure everyone else did. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
wonderful Shabbos, and if I don't speak to you, Shabbos Pesach should be very liberating and very
Amen.
exciting,
Amen.
and teach your children to really engage and ask the questions and make it come alive
Bring
in the most powerful
games
way.
to the Seder.
Amen.
Games to the Seder.
That's the
Absolutely.
goal. That's the goal.
I thank you so much, Danit, and for reaching out to me and reconnecting.
Yeah,
And what should I
absolutely.
say?
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for
How many
agreeing.
teachers can say they're reuniting with their students 30 years later? I don't know.
Right?
Very few.
Very
Very,
few.
very few. Very,
Very
very
few.
few. Thank you so, so much. We're so grateful to taking your time out of your very busy schedule. So really, I got so many DMs today. Like, how did you get Rabbi Jacobson on? And I'm like, Danit, leave it up to Danit.
Well, he's just such a nice guy. I mean, you're really smart and amazing and famous, but you happen to be a really nice person, like a very nice, enjoyable person.
You're making me blush.
Well, even rabbis blush. What can we do?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good Shabbos, and
Shabbos.
we'll see everyone next week. Oh, Rabbi Jacobson, why don't you come to the live next week, and maybe we'll bring you on as another guest, and you could be a mediator or something. We have a surprise guest for next week.
Stay in
Shaina,
touch. Stay
Okay.
in
we
touch,
will.
and let's see, maybe.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Okay.
so, so much.
Be
My
well,
daughter just
everybody.
came on. Okay. Good
Good
night.
night. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.